In the magic realm, everyone uses magic as if it is a natural part of daily life. It is believed that magic is a gift bestowed by God. With such a high emphasis placed on its mastery, magic determines one's social status in the world. And a deep forest where dragons flying about is ordinary. In a nearby hut, Mashle's father, Bernard Regros, casually sits on his chair while using magic to pour himself a drink. He lives with his son in the forest, far from other humans, and his existence defies the natural order. The animals tremble in fear with their mouths wide open as they watch Mash bench press an absurd amount of weight like it's nothing. In his old age, he doesn't care about much because he has learned ways to deal with stress from his experiences. When Mash tries to enter the house and pulls the entire door off, the old man screams, wanting to know why he ripped the doors off their hinges. His son makes sense of that he was unable to recall whether it should push or pull. This excuse confounds the old folk, since Mash has been residing in the house for quite a long time. The young fellow begins to really regret his activities and apologizes, promising to fix it. Bernard calms down a little when he sees the youngster as contrite. However, he begins to overreact again when Squash attempts to fix the entryway as he goes aside and persistently slams it against the door frame. He attempts to instruct him to turn it back, but he's unable to do it in time, resulting in Mash breaking the door further. At this point he has given up, so he pours some tea for both of them to take. He confirms if his son has finished the day's training routine. Mash asks why all of his workouts are physical. Bernard pauses for a moment before answering. His internal conversation reveals that Mash is not like ordinary people because he can't use magic at all, so the least he can do is build him up physically. Bernard doesn't give him an answer and brushes it off as a story for another time. He gets up and tells his son that he is heading out for a little while, so he is trusting him to take care of their crib. Mash is content with the agreement and has figured out on how to fix the door. His father wants him to learn how to open and close it instead. Bernard seriously reminds him not to venture into the city while he's gone. As soon as his father turns away, he removes a flyer from a bakery advertising a limited edition flavor cream puff. He puts on a cloak and jogs towards the city as he's unable to resist the treats despite his father's stern warning. He arrives in the city with his head up, which allows him to blend in. He looks around and notices that everyone is using magic to the point that they're utilizing it for things that can be easily done with the good old hand. He arrives at the bakery and the smell of the freshly baked goods makes his body tense up with excitement. This causes him to clutch his hands tight. Mash steps forward and places an order for 7 pieces of the limited edition cream puffs. The baker is shocked when he hands over the coins because they are mangled. Mash comments that he got too excited and squashed them in his hand. The baker is sure that they don't bend when someone squeezes them in their hands. The young man apologizes as he straightens them. This fee causes the worker to scream. He calms down after a moment and hands Mash over his order. A sudden gust of wind removes his hood, revealing his face. Everyone immediately looks at him with worried expressions. They begin to mutter and panic, stating that they don't see a mark on his face. Meanwhile, Brad at Magic Police HQ reads the newspaper, which reports on the year's Divine Visionary. The chosen student is Rain Ames, a second year at Easton Magic Academy. This title is awarded to the pupil who demonstrates the highest degree of excellence over the school year. The recipient is also awarded a promotion to nobility among other rewards. Brad gets salty looking at it and compares it to his dull life and job. He has someone tied up in a cell. The man pleads for forgiveness, confessing that he only stole something small. His comment just makes Brad angrier, because his crime has given him more work. The officer removes his one in preparation to give him a punishment that will make him regret his crime, but the prisoner is saved by a call. Someone informs Brad that a young man is walking around the city without a mark. Back on the streets, Mash walks around oblivious to what is causing all the commotion as people stare at him. He remembers the warning his dad gave him and apologizes to the vision of his father, but he feels like it was worth making the journey for the goblin cream puffs. His stroll is interrupted when he bumps into policeman Terry. The officer gets riled up that he got some of the fillings on his uniform. But he's at fault because he's woozy. The young man tries to seek forgiveness by offering him a cream puff. But Terry knocks it out of his hand. As he continues to berate him, Mash rips his uniform, which shocks everyone. He was intending to wash and return it to the officer. Brad arrives at the scene and quickly makes Terry stand down. He looks over to Mash, who is enjoying his dessert. The officer is confused as to why he's been so casual in such a situation. Before he can fully interact with the unmarked kid, Bernadette swipes his son and dashes off. Brad sees this as an opportunity to get a promotion. So he sends a magic bird to follow the two. As soon as the father and son get home, Bernadette scolds Mash for going into the city despite being warned so many times. The old-timer quickly realizes that his son is regretful about his actions. This quells his anger, but he punishes him by having him repeat that morning's training routine. Mash accepts his dad's judgment, but before he heads to work out he gives him the cream puffs he bought for him. Bernadette rushes to the door to open it for Mash after remembering what happened earlier on. He really can't stay mad because he knows that Mash is a good kid at heart. Bernadette knows that he's at the age where he wants to go out and explore. But they have been living in isolation to make sure that he's safe. Looking at the situation in town, the father is sure that the magic police have caught wind of Mash and his trait. As he plans his next move, Bernadette notices a magic bird perched on a branch looking into the house. Before he can process the information, one side of the home is breached by a unit led by Brad. He smugly greets the old man and asks about his son's location. All the while Mash heads into the woods and begins to manipulate the weights like they are fake. This time a little squirrel is horrified by what it is seeing. The situation gets more bizarre when he states that he can complete the workout in 5 minutes if he puts his mind to it. He heads back home to eat his favorite dessert. As he approaches, he even sings a song about the cream puffs. When he reaches the door, the same predicament strikes again as he wonders if it is a push or a pull. He pauses when he overhears the unit leader talking. At this point Brad has burned it up and restrained him by the neck. The officer reveals that the reason why magic has flourished since the dawn of recorded history is that they have aggressively ridden themselves of those who are not able to use magic. This is a necessary sacrifice to maintain this balance. So he wants to know where his son is. The old-timer remains tight-lipped, causing Brad to throw him around out of frustration. The officer reminds him that it is a serious offense to shelter an unmarked. As he sits there, Bernadette thinks about how his whole life he was labeled as a failure in everything he did. This label persisted till his adulthood and it became unbearable, so one night he went to end it all. However, he paused when he heard baby Mash crying. He noticed that he was abandoned because he was unmarked. When he picked him up he began to laugh, which touched him dearly. So he decided to raise him as they were both rejected by society. That moment was the first time in his life that he felt like someone needed him. Even though they are not related by blood, he will always be a father to Mash. Bernadette begins to shout, instructing his son to run. While Brad tries to shut him up, he orders his men to check into the area for him. He must be close enough to hear the warning. The old man continues to shout even though he's getting beaten. The officer has had enough and charges up a spell to finish off Bernadette. Mash comes in hot with a powerful punch through the door, knocking the first subordinate out instantly. Everyone looks at him in disbelief as the raw power he just displayed is not normal. He stands there and still smoking like a rifle after being shot. Terry marches over to intimidate him, but he rips his shirt again and begins to unleash a barrage of slaps that knock him out. Mash reveals to Bernadette that he didn't run because they're family. He then turns to Brad and declares that he's going to send him to hell. Brad finds this amusing. He doesn't see how Mash can take him down without magic. At this point, Terry has regained consciousness and the consequences of the slaps are there for all to see. He reveals that the unit leader was on the Bureau of Magic Security Force. The mages in the area can't compare to him, let alone a magicless kid. Brad charges a spell and his #1 fan comments that it is a spell strong enough to drive away a dragon. The officer fires it, but Mash exhibits a flick of the wrist and swats it away like an unwanted booger. Brad can't believe what he is seeing and gets startled for a moment. He quickly regroups and fires a more powerful spell even though Terry pleads for him not to release it. Brad is gobsmacked as Mash sends it back to the center. Same-day delivery. It jets past his head and explodes deeper into the forest. He continues to fire more attacks, but the magicalist boy begins to deflect them, inspired by various sports from volleyball to football, and even juggles some. Mash picks up his father's wand and asks permission to use it. The officer thinks that he's got magic and puts up a barrier. But to his surprise, Mash launches the one which shatters the barrier and leaves a little cut on Brad's cheek. He falls to the ground with a look of defeat on his face. Bernadette is shocked because he didn't expect the training to create such a monster. Brad begins to laugh at this whole situation. He decides to offer Mash a deal. He wants him to enroll in a magic school and become the year's divine visionary. If he gets selected, it means the gods have accepted him, which in turn will lead to society accepting him. Brad wants the fortune and prestige that comes with it as his backer. Bernard tries to dissuade his son from taking the deal, but the officer explains that the only other option is that they will get hunted for the rest of their lives. Mash takes the deal, so with the aid of Brad he gets a fake mark and is enrolled in magic school to be the best magician without an ounce of magic. He stands in front of the school ready to crush his competition. Please like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to comment below your favorite part.